"I can't breathe," exclaimed 44-year-old Eric Garner as NYPD officer Daniel Pantaleo, with his arms wrapped around Garner's neck, wrestled him to the ground. "I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe," repeated Garner, as Pantaleo strengthened his grip, pushing Garner's head into the pavement. On July 17, 2014, Eric Garner was approached by plain-clothed NYPD officer Justin D'Amico at 202 Bay Street, Tompkinsville, Staten Island. According to Ramsey Orta, a witness at the scene, Garner had recently broken up a fight between two intoxicated men, and the commotion had attracted Officer D'Amico and his partner, Officer Daniel Pantaleo. These two officers had arrested Garner previously for selling loose cigarettes, and Garner was visibly on edge when confronted.
Trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody standing here, they told me I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me, trying to sell a cigarette. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone.
Garner would repeat the now infamous phrase, "I can't breathe," 11 times before being rendered unconscious. He was left lying on the sidewalk for 7 minutes while the officers waited for an ambulance to arrive. Eric Garner was pronounced dead at the hospital 1 hour later. Police brutality, especially towards African Americans, is not a brand new issue, with Jim Crow laws and black codes granting law enforcement special privileges when it came to dealing with black people in the late 1800s up until the 1960s. In 2015, 2016, and 2017, African Americans made up the racial majority of unarmed victims fatally shot by police officers. Michael Brown was an 18-year-old, unarmed, black man fatally shot by white police officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri. He had stolen a pack of cigarillos from a liquor store, and Ferguson police approached him soon thereafter. Wilson shot Brown 12 times, with 6 of those bullets connecting with their target. Although records are slightly contradictory, the majority of witnesses state that Michael Brown turned and put his hands in the air after Wilson fired at his back. It was then that Wilson unloaded 6 bullets into the man's chest, neck, and right arm, fatally wounding him. The entire altercation was inhumane and truly showed how the Ferguson police officers saw Michael Brown and other black citizens as second class. This excerpt from the New York Times piece on Michael Brown shows some members of Brown's community and their reaction to his murder.
I ran out the door, and I ain't even had no shoes on, socks on. When we got to the scene, they was just putting the tape up around him.
Like shit, I'm hitting that man, I'm hitting, but he kept shooting.
I can't even describe how it felt just looking at him laying there. It's constantly blood just running from his body to the side of the street. And I think really they should have covered him up at that time, because his grandmama looking at him and kids looking at him, you know, it's a dead kid.
Believe it was one of his relatives ran over and tried to see who it was, and the first cop, St. Louis County cop, I believe, ran to him and told him to get away. This is a crime scene. You can't be here. And it was not pretty. They had no sympathy. It just seemed like they had no sympathy. They had these blank expressions on their face.
Oppression of African Americans is as ingrained in the roots of our nation as the red, white, and blue fibers woven together by Betsy Ross. Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Stephon Clark, Michael Brown, Alton Sterling. The list of unarmed African Americans killed by police officers goes on and on. In the San Francisco 49ers' first preseason game in the summer of 2016, their star quarterback Colin Kaepernick decided to sit on the bench during the national anthem. Kaepernick was an established NFL veteran who had led his team to the Super Bowl only 2 seasons earlier, but decided to use his platform and reach as a celebrity for something bigger than football. Kaepernick sat for those who couldn't anymore. The hundreds of black men and women shot and killed by police officers in the streets. Kaepernick's actions were extremely polarizing, with over 200 NFL players kneeling in solidarity with him. However, many people disagreed with Kaepernick's actions. arguing they were disrespectful towards the country and its military. One antagonist of Kaepernick's movement was President Donald Trump.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
In response to Trump's tirade, the sports and entertainment world has become galvanized, elevating Kaepernick's protest movement with thousands of like-minded voices.
Reaction to the anthem?
I think it's just typical of the NFL. They're just playing to their fan base, and they're just, basically trying to use the anthem as fake patriotism, nationalism, scaring people. It's idiotic, but that's how the NFL has handled their business. And I'm proud to be in a league that understands patriotism in America is about free speech, about peacefully protesting. And I think our leadership in the NBA understands that when the NFL players were kneeling, they were kneeling to protest police brutality, to protest racial inequality. They weren't disrespecting the flag or the military, but our president decided to make it about that. The NFL followed suit.
When the issue became a national debate, many politicians gave their opinions on the topic as well. Beto O'Rourke was running for Senate in Texas last year when he was asked his opinion on NFL players kneeling and whether or not it was disrespectful.
But I'm reminded, somebody mentioned reading the Taylor Branch book. You did. Parting the Waters and the King Years. And when you read that book and find out what Dr. King and this nonviolent, peaceful movement to secure better, because they didn't get full, civil rights for their fellow Americans, the challenges that they faced, those who died in Philadelphia, Mississippi, for the crime of trying to be a man, trying to be a woman in this country, the young girls who died in the church bombing, those who were beaten within an inch of their life crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama with John Lewis, those who were punched in the face, spat upon, dragged out by their collar at the Woolworth lunch counter for sitting with white people at the same lunch counter in the same country where their fathers may have bled the same blood on the battlefields of Omaha Beach or Okinawa or anywhere that anyone ever served this country. The freedoms that we have were purchased not just by those in uniform, and they definitely were, but also by those who took their lives into their hands riding those Greyhound buses, the Freedom Riders in the Deep South in the 1960s, who knew full well that they would be arrested, and they were serving time in the Mississippi State Penitentiary. Rosa Parks getting from the back of the bus to the front of the bus, peaceful, nonviolent protests, including taking a knee at a football game to point out that black men, unarmed, black teenagers, unarmed, and black children, unarmed, are being killed at a frightening level right now, including by members of law enforcement, without accountability and without justice.
Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Colin Kaepernick. People who gave up lives and careers in the fight against oppression of a race that has long been oppressed. We retell their stories not to recount the horror and tragedies they faced, but the determination and courage they showed in the face of oppression. Eric Garner, pleading with police officers to just leave me alone. I didn't do nothing. Leave me alone. Michael Brown, with his hands held up high to the sky in surrender. Colin Kaepernick, who lost his NFL career in protest of these and other unjust murders. These men should not be lost in vain. I can't breathe, and hands up, don't shoot, are chanted at rallies across the nation by citizens pleading for equal treatment. Innocent black Americans are killed at an alarming rate, and not enough is being done about it. The fight is not over.